can start right there.
Okay, sorry.
Hey everybody, we're back. The Word made fresh in the flesh. I made that up.
Yeah, that's good.
I was planning on it. Neither of us wore the right colors, so I brought
True.
my Pentecost stole because this Sunday is, do you see it? Do you see it? There's fire. Is there any doves on this? There's a dove.
There's a dove.
Pentecost.
There you go.
This is the only stole I own.
Really?
Yeah, I just borrow stoles. I got this one when I was ordained.
Beautiful. It's very nice.
Yeah. So I, talking about Pentecost Sunday, June 8th, and so you can wear red if you've got it. And you're going to hear the Pentecost story in worship from Acts 2. But there's also Galatians 5.
Mm-hmm.
And you said you're leaning into Galatians.
I think so. Because we've been doing Galatians. This is our third week now.
Yep,
I
little
think.
Galatians trilogy. We had it. You started it, and then
Right.
Jade, and now you again.
Now me again. There's just something about this moment that I think Galatians is speaking into about how we do life together. So remember, there's that tension between Peter and Paul,
Yep.
and those who think everyone can come to the table, and those who think only the people who've been circumcised can come to the table.
Yeah, how Jewish do you need to be a Christian?
There you go. How Jewish do you need to be a Christian? Yeah. And I think even now, how whatever, like
Yep.
what is the litmus test for who gets to come to God's table? And how are we literally pummeling each other if we don't meet the mark? So we see this happening in the church. We see this happening in society.
On the right and the left.
On the right and the left
not-
and in the middle.
You're not social justice-y enough.
Exactly.
You're not doing this thing.
Right. You're not pious enough. You're not something enough. And I think Galatians is very helpful because it's where Paul is laying out that it's not we ourselves who make this relationship happen. It's all God. It's all God.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about the gift of faith and the demand and responsibility of faith. And what I love about the Galatians text right there at the end, it talks about staying in step with the Spirit. A couple of weeks ago, I talked about a Jesus-shaped faith, this notion of staying in step, this notion of kind of measuring ourselves against what God demands of us as children of God, I think is super, super helpful for this moment.
So this gets us that staying in step, which as a former dancer, you know well.
Yes.
Staying in step, when you got a dancer for a preacher, you got to have those. Yeah, I would do running metaphors all the time too, so it's all good. It's all good. We got to just bring more
There's
context.
a sense of staying in step and rhythm when you're running as well.
Oh, I could do a whole sermon on the difference of running with a pace group versus running by yourself, and what does it mean to have other steps around you to keep you going. Yeah,
and to keep you on pace, because I run much slower and lift much lighter weights if I'm not doing it with the community.
Well, like the pace group metaphor, the fear would be that I'd actually run too fast in a marathon. I would go out too quick, and you need the pace group to be like, no, this is the pace we need to be if we want to actually finish the race.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're just going to crash and burn at mile 20.
Right.
So
that's a great metaphor, I think, though, for community, and the reason why every 7 days we gather to be reminded to keep step.
This is the pace group. Right? This is the dance crew. This is
that's gorgeous. Because I think I'll just talk about what happens. I think at our church here. We have folks that are getting out ahead who have a different vision, perhaps, than what the collective have set as the pace. The collective being the congregation, the collective being the council, the collective being what comes out of our Bible study, what comes out of our worship, what we together have set as our framework, our theme, our goal, our North Star for the year. There are some people who are saying, it needs to look like this, and it can only look like this. And if you don't do what I want, right, I'll drop a bomb or I'll tie your shoelaces together and make you trip so you can't be part of the group.
Or just send a lot of emails.
Yeah, or just send a lot of emails. But I don't know what the metaphor is for people who want to disrupt the pace stream.
Yeah.
Because this is what Paul is speaking to, right? I'm not trying to be shady. This is what is in the text. There are people who have decided to go their own way in a way that does not keep step with the generosity and graciousness and spaciousness that God's self has laid out. And Paul is saying you've gotten off track.
Well, and that's where, during Galatians 5, a whole lot here, keeping in step with one another. That's from the NIV, by the way, in case you're looking up here. In the NRSV, it's let us be guided by the Spirit. So same metaphor, guided, be in step with, good language. But this comes right on the heels of the fruit of the Spirit, which is this image of what kind of fruit should a community be bearing?
Yes.
Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control. Those are things that just naturally will grow from a healthy Christian tree, I guess you could say.
Right. And I think for people who are in relationship with each other, there's a group here at the church that is very passionate about the work of justice that we do. And there's an older member who, in that space, calls us back to ourselves. And it's one of the reasons I really appreciate being with folk who have been faithful believers for decades longer than I have, because I appreciate the ways when we get out of step, elders can call us back and say, hey, does this measure patience? Does it reveal kindness? Does it show, is this us living the fruit of the Spirit that God calls us to? And they do it generally, I find, with really great humility and love. Because another part of this journey is correction. And it's a tough thing that I think most of the churches I've served at haven't figured out how to lovingly say, you've gotten a little off course and you need to come back. And we also haven't figured out how to receive correction in a way that says, you know what, I appreciate that. Thank you for, it's like that hymn. If I can help somebody, if I can show somebody they're traveling wrong, then my living won't be in vain. And we're called to do that in love.
I mean, and Paul gives us both lists. There's the fruit of the Spirit's list. There's also the fruit of the flesh, the works of the flesh. Well, some of them, they go all over. There's things like licentiousness, which we all need to look up, I guess. I don't know what that means, but I'll put the definition on screen. Enmities, strife, jealousy, angers, quarrels, dissensions, factions, envy. Includes like drunkenness and carousing. But there's a lot of like, okay, what's going on with this group of people? It's interesting that that's the group that probably was describing a bit of the activity of the church in Galatia.
Probably.
And probably describes churches still today. Quarrels, dissensions, factions.
Yeah. And I think this is a good moment to pause and remind ourselves that we are all of those things, right? We are not only the ones bearing the fruit and being very good and holy.
Well, it's the people doing those works of the flesh that need to bear the fruit. It's not like...
Right. But even those who think that this correction is not for them, I would just invite us,
fingers are pointing
myself
back at me.
Included, to think about, where am I quarrelsome? Where, even if it's not coming out of my mouth, where the seeds might be in my heart, where the rage or the anger might flare up, when I get unkind emails or someone says something unkind or untruthful in this community where I know our members are doing good work. People say we're doing nothing. We're doing nothing meaningful. And I'm human, and my first reaction, I have to go back to the text as well, because anger and all of that is part of my story too.
Look at that. Pastors are humans. Who would have thought? I just want to say too, I'm bringing us to the fruit of the Spirit, work of the flesh list, because to me, those are like the obvious sermons here. And you went to like, well, you're preaching the end of it, this little line that we might have missed because we get so caught up in those lists. And I just think that's worth pointing out, that sermons don't always need to just be the obvious thing that jumps off the text because it's the best hit from the Bible. It's like, sometimes that overshadows the line that follows and we miss the opportunity to engage with that.
Right. There's a lot of good stuff in this, we call it a pericope. It's a little section of text. There's something about keeping in step, or what does it say in that one?
This was, let us be guided by the Spirit.
Let us be guided, that I think is maybe easier to digest. I think when we get these hit lists in the Bible, they can be overwhelming. Some of the words, licentiousness, anger even, can be so off-putting that it's hard to find our way into those lists. I think what we our reflex is to say, I'm not angry, I'm not divisive. So maybe the thing that comes before, the thing that comes after gives us a way in. How are we being guided by the works of the flesh? How are we being guided by the fruit of the Spirit? And it might not even be tying it to that, but what is guiding our life? Even that. I love, this will show you some, I think, diversity and usefulness for listening to other preachers who you might think might not be in step with the way you think. I love Andy Stanley.
I was wondering who you were going to say.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, is it this person? Okay.
There are things, there are
I'm a fan.
ways that he breaks down the text that is so digestible. It is so clear and simple. And I could see him, giving us a list that talks about guidance. What is guiding your life? And he would say things like, the things you spend the majority of your time doing probably are guiding your life.
Yep.
The things that you're spending your money on, probably guiding your life. So if you look at your phone usage, and most of your usage is playing some mindless game, even though you might not want to admit it, it's guiding your life.
Yeah.
If you look at your bank statement, or you track on some kind of an app, and most of your money is going to, I don't know, rent, it might be worth a conversation. How is getting my rent money together dominating my life in a way that might not be helpful or healthy? So not as a way to condemn, but as a way to invite awareness, so that perhaps there's another choice that could be made. There's another way to think about how our life is guided, because we probably can't do anything about the rent, but we might be able to do something about our mindset, or our how we stay in step, how we guide our days. And that is like an orientation of the spirit, our heart, more than it is an orientation of maybe outward things, right?
I like that. Andy Stanley, you want to join us on a show sometime? You're welcome anytime. It'd be fun.
Do you think he would sit down with us? I feel like we might be a little too... I feel like he's very open to all sorts of things. He's just very clear.
I think we could get in touch with him. I know someone who used to work for him.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
He's a masterful storyteller, and he's really good at making connections to everyday life.
And I mean, North Point Church, where church Andy Stanley started and is still serving at, falls in a different category probably than Riverside. But is not like the opposition. It's not like Christian nationalist, white evangelical conservative. There's a lot of openness to conversation and progressive values, and I have consistently been intrigued and leaned into things I've seen him say.
I have too, and I feel like over time, because I have his podcast on my phone just to show you how committed I am. I also feel that he takes really hard, polarizing issues and is able to talk about them in a way that I think people on many different sides of politics can hear what he has to say, because he leans into the text, and I think his messages are guided by the Spirit.
He reminds me of Mars Hill, where I used to work. It feels like that kind of like, I think things are being pushed for some people, but not. There's a lot in play, and it's like it'll feel progressive to some people, but not progressive to other people.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. But it still feels authentic to him. I don't feel like he's pandering, and I feel like he leaves you with a lot of good stuff to chew on. And I remember his sermons; they really stick. Anyway, even though we love you coming to hear us preach here at Riverside, I think you should listen to lots of different kinds of preachers, and I would recommend Andy Stanley. His father, Charles Stanley, what was the TV show? It was really popular. The 700 Club?
That one?
I don't know if it was that one, but he's like preaching royalty for some people, Charles Stanley.
Ooh, that's like
he kind of crashed and burned in the
it makes me think of like Jay Baker.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Which is very different from his parents.
Oh, for sure.
We should have Jay on too. That'd be fun.
Oh, he would be fun. He could be a fun one to come and just bring a message.
All right, so Andy Stanley, Jay Baker. Who else, everybody? Who else should be on the list of joining us on this show or whatever else we want to do?
Yeah.
Diversify your preachers.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right.
Some women would be.
Yes, already we've named 2 white men.
Two white men. But they are. I just think they're unusual. But yeah, people of color, women would be great. And I think particularly I would love to hear from an indigenous voice. I feel like that is an area where I have less connection and knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somehow that we got there from Galatians.
We did.
But I like it.
Well, I think it works because, again, this is this great diversity of God's people. And again, Paul is laying out in Galatians why God says everyone can come to the table.
Yeah.
And of course it scares us. We want to control who's sitting there. And we find all kinds of creative and often horrible ways to keep people from the table.
Yeah.
And we shame each other, we rail at each other, we yell, we call names. And Paul is saying, quit it.
Cut it out. He wrote a long, well, not too long, a nice letter letting us know. It is one of the longer of the letters because did you know that the order of the epistles is from longest to shortest?
I did know that.
It's one of my favorite facts.
Yeah.
And 2 Corinthians was written before 1 Corinthians.
Yes, that's
but
true.
it's just ordered this way because of longest to shortest. Not order of publication, just how many words.
So you could read the entire letter to the Galatians before you come to church on Sunday.
6 chapters.
And holding that, knowing that Paul is trying to draw the table and the circle wide could be helpful for where we go.
I like that. So after homework, read all 6 chapters and then leave a comment saying 6 chapters. That'll be the code. That means you read all 6 chapters. So say 6 chapters. Lorraine, I know you're going to do it. All right.
Everybody is always going to do the homework.
She does.
Love her. She is one of the saints that calls us back in a loving way to stay in step with the Spirit.
Absolutely.
We love Miss Lorraine.
Absolutely. Everybody, you know the drill. You have homework, but then join us on Sunday. Bible study starts at 9:30 on Zoom and on site, so join us however you can join us. Worship starts at 10:30 with some call to worship prelude music from the Carillon and the organ. 11 o'clock's when you might hear her or someone else stand up and say something. And then we do virtual coffee hour for everyone online, where we will get to talk more about this Pentecost text. It's Pentecost.
It's Pentecost, so the children are going to be singing in worship as well.
Yeah.
Always sing on Pentecost.
And Pentecost, we didn't even talk about what Pentecost is.
We didn't really.
That's a story, Acts 2. There's other videos.
The Spirit is coming to show us how to stay in step with her.
Ooh. And her is the appropriate pronoun. Okay, everybody, see you next time.